What's going on, Jeromes? Beautiful. What day is it? Is it Wednesday? Sure. And we're back with our 5 good questions, our sort of revamped Q&A session, and I think. I think I like this format better. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, because the long form Q&A can get pretty long. This one, we get to pick some of the good questions as well as really expand upon things. So I think we'll stick with this. First up is from A Truckin' One. If we trade up from 11 to in the draft to like pick 7, how much do you think we would give up? So the Vikings right now chilling at 11, and I do think that a leapfrog to 7 could make sense, because you have teams like Atlanta, potentially Chicago. So Chicago could be in a spot where they trade out of 1 and a quarterback needy team comes up. Washington and New England, I think, are both firmly in on quarterbacks. And also, I think that the Bears could potentially take a quarterback at 9 with their original draft pick. So the Vikings jumping the Bears, jumping the Falcons to secure the quarterback. If one is there, I think that could make sense. And the most recent, the quarterback that falls, wish for you on a falling star, wondering where you are. That's right. So if Jaden Daniels tumbles down, we're going to go get him. Come on, man. Because I do think that guys like Penix could be there at 11, even though blah, 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 national title game. Go watch the rest of his tape. Bo Nix could be there too. McCarthy, I think, might sneak in the first round, so we'll see. But the recent trade of that caliber would have been back in 2018. So the Bills went from 12 overall in the draft up to 7 to go get Josh Allen. So they got 7th overall and a 7th rounder, and they gave up number 12, 2 second-round picks, which they had in the same draft, as well as a 4th rounder. So all of their picks were immediate. Now, I mean, the Vikings, if they gave up that second-round pick, they don't draft again until the 4th round because they don't have a 3rd because of the Hawkinson trade. So, I mean, that would be a little bit rich, and it would have to be the guy. It would have to be the guy, because the Vikings do have some other needs there. Or, I mean, is it a spot where you just bite the bullet and you trade the future first rounder, where ideally you're going to be good next year and that first round pick is going to be towards the back end? So do you just go for it? I think that could be a possibility. Next up, unfaithful eunuchs. Did you see the recent grade list come out for the 2022 draft class? Lewis Scen was the only F, I believe. When do we call him a bust and get rid of him so he can become a star for another franchise? All right, so for this graphics, we have their rookie stats. But yeah, the 2022 class, looking a little bit dicey. Now, it's not 2016 Vikings draft class as of yet, but starting to get there. But Lewis Scen, the whole thing with Scen is that even though the Vikings run multiple safeties, you had Harrison, you had Metellus, you had Cambisi. Like, should Scen start over any of them? Probably not. And they got Theo Jackson, who was playing some great special teams before he got hurt. Same thing with Carry On My Jayward Son. So, people are saying, oh, Lewis Scen should be out there. But, I mean, those other guys didn't do anything wrong, and they're playing fantastic. And also Scen, was sort of behind the 8 ball with the leg fracture last year, as well as they took it extremely slow with him in training camp. And also he was dinged up then, too. So, I mean, there wasn't really a spot where he could really flex. And I firmly believe that Scen was drafted to be the 1-for-1 replacement for Harrison Smith. Now, the broken leg certainly delayed that. And you could say, well, Carl Hamilton could be the replacement for Harrison Smith. You're right. But also, you can't go back and change the past, so why worry about it? But with Scen, if they do let go of Harrison, if they do part ways, you're certainly going to see what Scen can do. And it could be sink or swim at that point. But, I mean, he's on his rookie deal. They're not just going to get rid of him. It doesn't really make much sense. But he's got to start doing something. Booth couldn't really get into the cornerback rotation ahead of Blackman or Evans. It's certainly not Murph. Ingram has been a 2-year starter. He's been good in patches this year. He was not very good as a rookie, but you do love to see that he did improve. And then you got Asamoah, who he played some good special teams, but he just cannot stay healthy. It just seems like it's always something with him. Evans certainly has potential, but Evans got benched a couple times towards the end of the season. And you love his physicality, you love his run defense, but there's some question marks there. Says he's not on the team. I think he's on the Jaguars practice squad last I saw. Ty Chandler was finally given a chance. Verdarian Lowe was on the trade to the Patriots. Jalen Speedy Naylor can't stay healthy. Nick Muse, the Vikings' #1 rated tight end or pass catcher overall. In the 2022 class, not ideal and not looking ideal. Prida, how would you feel if we landed Justin Fields in the offseason? So, wasn't a couple years ago when Bears fans were like, oh, the Vikings tried to trade up for Justin Fields, but they didn't get him. We said at the time, if the Vikings wanted to trade up for Fields, they would have. Frankly, I think the Vikings were looking to trade up with Carolina for J.C. Horn, but that's an argument for another day. And with Fields, he can be hot and cold. Fields can make some big-time plays. Fields sometimes struggles with simple concepts. He is probably the most dangerous running quarterback in the league outside of Lamar Jackson, but the Bears didn't utilize him. And frankly, I think Luke Getsy is a terrible offensive coordinator. I think that their offensive line play was spotty. Playmakers, I mean, they got more, sure, and I think his grade with the Bears is incomplete. But with the Bears right now, I think it would behoove them to take a quarterback up at the top. Because you don't know if Fields is a guy after 3 years, plus he's eligible for an extension. That does factor in. But, I mean, first off, I don't think that the Bears would trade him in division just because the small chance that could come back and haunt them, which would frankly be kind of hilarious. But I do think it's a spot where maybe he is traded to, say, the Steelers or potentially the Falcons or the Raiders or something like that. I don't know. But maybe it's a spot where after his rookie deal runs his course and he's a free agent and the Vikings pick him up to be like QB3, maybe get something out of him. It's possible, man. Next up, Adam Root. What picks do you think Williams, May, and Daniels go? What would it take to trade up for one of them? I think the Vikings would be hard-pressed to... get into the top three. Because, one, I don't think the Bears would be trading in division with the Vikings unless the Vikings just pay through the nose, which not really interested in. Washington's probably going to take quarterback, same thing in New England. I don't think Arizona wants to come all the way down to 11. I think that, frankly, they're just going to stick and pick and take wide receiver 1 in this class. Chargers, maybe. I mean, the Chargers could potentially get Bowers at 11. They could potentially get wide receiver 2 or 3 in this class at 11. I think they certainly could be open for business up at 5. And I think that's about as high as the Vikings probably would go. Because it could be a spot where Washington, New England, if they get an absolute windfall and they're fine with a guy like Penix or Bo Nix at 11, maybe. But I think that's kind of remote, and frankly, I think it would cost the Vikings 3 first-round picks to do it, and probably and some change. But with 5, moving up to 11 to 5, maybe a first and a third, 2 firsts and a third, potentially, something in that neighborhood. But I think May. I actually think the Patriots are going to trade up with the Bears and take Drake May. It's super early. And it's dumb to have declarations like that. I do declare. But there's just something about New England. There's just something about a quarterback like Drake May which would play well with the fan base. I don't know. I just feel like Drake May is going to be a Patriot. Washington. I don't know. All right, so New England trades up for Drake May. Washington sticks and picks. I think that they would take Williams. And then, do the Bears trade down from 3 again, or do they take Daniels? God, that'd be wild. That would be wild, man. But I'll say, just for schnitz and giggles, I'm going to say that Jaden Daniels ends up being a Viking, because we have Jaden Daniels and then we have Jaden McDaniels. We would have a monopoly on all the Jaden Daniels and derivatives of it. Lastly. Purple rain. Should we pursue a high-caliber free agent running back this offseason? Someone like Saquon or Henry. Our running game was terrible this year. That's fair. And part of the running game was, the old thinking is that, hey, just find a late-round running back and run him into the ground and then move on, find another late-round running back. Now, that theory does hold true with, say, Ty Chandler. I think Ty Chandler could be an RB1, but you do have these guys that are relatively low miles. Again, I say relatively. And the running back market, Maybe Dalvin Cook destroyed the running back market because the Jets paid $7 million for that production this year. I don't know, man. But there are going to be some interesting names on the market. And I don't think it will necessarily break the bank because Josh Jacobs is going to be out there. He after he signed a revised one-year deal. Pollard and Barkley played on the tag this year. Austin Eckler had sort of a lost season with the Chargers, but he's getting up there in age. He's going to be 27 next year. Derrick Henry, of course, King Henry, but he's going to be 31. Cordero. Yeah. But is it a spot where you look at DeAndre Swift having himself a monster season with Philadelphia, Devin Singletary finding some great work in Houston. I think, Zeke found himself a role with the Patriots. So I think it's a spot where even though it would cut against the grain of Kwesi and analytics, I think if you have a chance, and the Vikings do have $40 million in cap space, and also there's ways that they could even increase that. Well, number one, if they extend Kirk and they re-sign Daniil, that lowers their void year cap hits precipitously. Also, Jefferson's due a $19.743 million cap hit on his fifth-year option. If they extend him, that would very likely reduce his cap charge for this year. Another Rob Brzezinski special. So, I mean, if the Vikings want to sign a running back, they can sign a running back. They can do it, man. And frankly, I don't know what it is. I just have this gut feeling that the Vikings will be in play for a guy like Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley. I don't know, but I just feel like Quase is going to take a swing, and I don't think that it would be crazy money. Like, I don't think that they would have to give them Jonathan Taylor Thomas money. Like, maybe it would be like a 2-year, $16 million deal or something of that ilk. But I'll be down for it. I mean, Saquon still got some great football in him. He was on a very crappy Giants team this year. Plus, you saw firsthand in the wild card game the value of him. I think Josh Jacobs is super underrated. I mean, he's 2 years removed from being the league's leading rusher. Henry's super cheap. It would have to be super cheap. Same thing with Austin Eckler. Not really interested in Pollard, but something that could be interesting and something that could be outside the box, because at a certain point, even though like Kwesi and the analytics say like you don't pay running backs, at a certain point, they're an undervalued asset just because no one pays them, right? And you could find a market inefficiency there, and Kwesi would certainly be all about that. But that's it. That's 5 good questions for this beautiful Wednesday. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skull production value.